All right, so get this. Okay, picture this for me. 16 school children, right? Yamanashi Prefecture in Japan, 1944. Out in the hills, just a normal day, And bam, something super strange happens. They all just pass out, lose consciousness, just like that.
Yeah, sounds pretty freaky.
Totally. And the weirdest part is 15 of them wake up eventually. Good as new, seemingly. No clue what happened, no memory of the event at all. But one boy, and it's always just the one, he stays in a coma, like never wakes up. It's one of those unsolved mysteries, history is full of them. And that's exactly what we're going to dive into today.
So this case, it's got a real hook, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I think what makes it even more interesting, well, one of the things anyway, is that we're looking at it through a pretty unusual lens, a work of fiction.
That's right. We're talking Kafka on the Shore by the one and only Haruki Murakami.
Right, exactly. And he takes this real event, weaves it into his story, gives us his own perspective on it, which is, always thought-provoking. Murakami's like that.
He is. He always makes you think. So today we're going to go deep on the details of this event, at least how Murakami presents it in the book. See the different ways he interprets what might have happened, right? Even how he kind of highlights the fact that sometimes there just aren't easy answers.
And the big questions, right? The
Yeah.
ones that always linger, like what can this whole bizarre thing, this incident and the Murakami's take on it, what can it tell us about, memory and the effects of trauma? About how humans just have this deep need to make sense of the things that just don't make sense.
Exactly.
And right off the bat, we should maybe think about how a novelist, someone like Murakami, how they even approach a real-life mystery like this.
Mm.
It's not like he's trying to write a news report, right?
Yeah.
He's using the power of fiction to, to explore the emotional side of things, the psychological impact of this event.
For sure. Okay, so let's set the scene for everybody listening. Early May 1944. We're in the hills near a small elementary school, Yamanashi Prefecture. 16 kids on a school trip.
Sounds pretty idyllic so far.
Right, until it isn't.
Yeah, that's where things take a turn.
So we've got 8 boys, 8 girls. And something important here, 5 of these kids were evacuees from Tokyo, because of the war.
Right. So if we think about the context, wartime Japan, there's probably a lot of anxiety going on, a sense of displacement for these kids. Imagine being uprooted from Tokyo, sent to the countryside. That's a pretty huge change.
Totally. And what are they doing out in these hills? Gathering mushrooms and wild plants. Food was rationed back then, so chances are they were hungry. And Murakami points out this interesting detail, too. The Tokyo kids, they came from different backgrounds than the local farm kids, so maybe they even talk differently, dress differently. Imagine this group, kind of thrown together, not necessarily super close-knit to begin with.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if that's going to play into how things unfold, that lack of a really tight bond between them.
Good point. So they're all out there, right, gathering their mushrooms and whatnot. And then, poof, it's like someone hit a switch. All 16 of them, unconscious, limp but breathing. Pulses are normal, no fevers. But here's where it gets really creepy. Their eyes are open, and they're moving slowly from side to side, like they're scanning something way off in the distance. But they're not reacting to anything around them.
Okay, now that is seriously eerie. Those open eyes, just scanning like that. It's like they're somewhere else, not really present.
I know, right? And then there's Satoru Nakata, this little pale kid, one of the Tokyo evacuees. He's the one who doesn't wake up.
The outlier.
Yeah. Now, the other 15, like I said, they come around eventually. And get this, no memory, 0, of anything that happened, no lasting problems either. Doctors check them out. Everything seems fine physically. It's like a blip, like it never happened. Except, for Nakata.
That amnesia thing, that's got to be a clue, right? Even though there are no physical problems, to have that kind of blank spot in your memory, it says something's going on psychologically, maybe some kind of defense mechanism, blocking out something really disturbing.
Maybe. So this whole thing happens, and obviously it's a pretty big deal. I mean, 16 kids just suddenly passing out, so the military gets involved. And they clamp down hard on the whole thing. Total secrecy, no news, no reports, nothing. Even during the American occupation after the war, there was this hush-hush investigation. Like, they wanted to make it disappear.
Well, think about it. Wartime. Something like this happens. I mean, yeah, the military's going to step in, control the information. They probably didn't want any panic, right? All kinds of rumors flying around about, secret weapons or who knows what.
Right, exactly. So they bring in this guy, Dr. Shigenori Tsukayama, a big-shot psychiatry professor from Tokyo Imperial University. Him and his team, they're trying to figure this out.
They're the ones who rule out the obvious physical stuff, right? Like poison gas.
Exactly. It was a natural thought, I mean, with the war going on. But Dr. Tsukayama and this army doctor, Major Toyama, they both thought it was super unlikely. A gas that just knocks people out for a bit, no lasting effects, it wouldn't be a very effective weapon. Plus, the major, he's the one who said there were no special weapons stashed in that area.
So they're back to square one.
Pretty much. So they start looking at other possibilities,
Yeah.
and they come up with this theory, mass hypnosis.
Okay, wait. Mass hypnosis.
Yeah, hear me out. The symptoms, those weird eye movements, the slowed down breathing and heart rate, and that total memory wipe. Plus, the teacher, remember, the one who was with them, they weren't affected. So whatever happened, it only seemed to hit the kids.
All right. I mean, it's definitely strange, but how would mass hypnosis even work in this case?
Well, think of it this way. You've got a group, right? In this case, these kids out in the hills. Something happens, some kind of shared trigger, and it basically sends them into this trance-like state.
I get the basic idea, I guess, but what could the trigger be?
Well, they thought maybe it was the glint of sunlight off a B-29 airplane. Remember, it's wartime. Seeing a B-29, that would be a pretty unusual, maybe even startling sight.
Okay, I could see that. I mean, anything's possible, right? But it sounds like a long shot.
It is. And Dr. Tsukayama, he admitted that it was just a theory, a possible explanation.
I guess with something like this, you're never going to have all the answers,
Yeah,
especially after so many years.
true. Okay, so let's talk about Nakata, the boy who never woke up. He ends up in a military hospital in Tokyo. And this is where Murakami's novel really picks up the story.
Right. And how many years later are we talking?
Decades. We meet Nakata as an older man, and it's pretty clear that he's been fundamentally changed by that day in the hills. He's described as, you know, intellectually disabled, I guess is the term. But he's got this really strange ability. He can talk to cats.
Hold on, talk to cats.
Yep, talks to cats. He doesn't remember the incident clearly, but it left this huge mark on him. Murakami even describes him as having a faint shadow, like a part of him is missing.
That's powerful imagery. Like,
Wow.
yeah, this event, even though he can't recall it, it somehow shaped his whole being.
Right. And he lives this incredibly simple life, needs help with basic things like reading. There's even this part where he feels like he's lost all his inner books, and he feels this emptiness like a void inside him. It's a really powerful way of showing the long-term effects of that trauma, even without conscious memory.
It's like Murakami is saying, trauma can stay with you, even if you don't remember the event itself. It becomes part of who you are.
Yeah. And, the novel never really gives a straightforward explanation for what happened, not to Nakata or the other children. I think Murakami does that on
He
purpose.
wants us to sit with that uncertainty, right? It's
Yeah.
like he's mirroring the real life situation. But this Rice Bowl Hill incident, it remains a mystery.
Yeah.
And from there, he can explore these bigger themes. Well, think about it. The relationship between trauma and memory. It's all over the book. Those 15 kids who recovered physically but have no memory of the event, it suggests something pretty powerful is going on in their minds. Like they had to bury it, to cope.
And Nakata's case, his whole life is different because of that one day, even though he doesn't remember it.
Exactly. Murakami's playing with this idea of unseen forces, too. He throws in these metaphorical elements like a dark pool of water that's always there, a prophetic voice. He's not giving you a scientific explanation, but he's hinting at all these things happening beneath the surface.
Right. Like, even if we can explain something rationally, it can still have this huge impact on us. And he ties this whole incident into the other big themes in the book, right? Identity, loss, the way reality and dreams kind of blend together.
All connected. Think about Miss Sayeki, the character who wrote that song, Kafka on the Shore. She's got her own baggage, her own history of loss and things she can't quite remember. It's like that incident with the kids, it kind of echoes through the whole book in a way.
Yeah. So we've got this real historical event, this unexplained mass unconsciousness, and Murakami uses it as a jumping off point in Kafka on the Shore. The mass hypnosis thing, that's one possible explanation, but Nakata, his situation and all the symbolism in the novel, it points to these deeper, more subtle consequences.
And I think that's the real takeaway for me. It makes you think about how we understand things, the things that just don't make sense, the things we can't fully explain. Like, where does science end and something else, something maybe we don't have a name for, where does that begin?
And how do these events, these mysteries, shape our memory? Not just individually, but as a society. What do we choose to remember and what do we forget?
And how does storytelling, like what Murakami's doing, how does that help us deal with the unknown, even when we don't get clear-cut answers?
I think that's a great question for everyone listening to think about. If you want to go even deeper on this, see if you can find any historical accounts of this Rice Bowl Hill incident. I mean, if they even exist. And definitely check out Kafka on the Shore. See how Murakami takes this event and uses it to tell this really complex story. It's about memory and trauma and how we try to find meaning in a world that can feel pretty confusing sometimes.
Think about it. Both of these approaches, the scientific explanation and the artistic interpretation, they both add something to our understanding, even when we can't get a completely clear picture.
And maybe the biggest question of all, the one that really stays with you is how many other unexplained events have happened? Events that we don't even know about that have shaped history, shaped our lives in ways we can't even imagine.
Now that's something to think about.
It is.